I know I'm mic'd up. I think that's just for the live stream, but everyone can hear me, I hope. Some pretty good projection here. So we're going to get into it. Today's going to be, we're going to take a fun look at security. And I know that that's kind of an oxymoron for a lot of people, but when we're web developers, what we're doing is we're building websites that have galactic ambitions, right? We're out there to conquer the world. And so we worked really hard, and our initial launch was a success. Things are going well, you know, the buttons are being pushed, and levers are being pulled, and lasers are being shot. But unfortunately, there's a few bad actors out there. And these bad actors are out there trying to do whatever they can to take the entire thing offline. And so what we have to do is we have to learn that even a small hole in our defenses will eventually just blow up everything that we've done. So, fortunately for us, the rebels are fairly consistent in how they attack. If you've seen episode 4 and episode 7, you know that is very consistent. So we need to learn from their patterns. How do they come at you? How do they attack you? And how do they get at your site? So today we're going to be talking about Death Star security, and I like to call it all it takes is a few rebels. So we're having a little bit of fun today. Everybody on your laptops, if you have them open, head to deathstarsecurity.com. Just so you know, this is the first time I've tried this, so live demos, always fun. But we're actually going to be live hacking a site that I created during this talk. So while you guys are all pulling that up, I'll give myself a little introduction here. My name is Chris Teitzel. I'm the founder of Locker and Cellular Media. Locker is a secrets management solution for WordPress and Drupal and all CMSs. I've been fortunate enough to work with websites and companies of all sizes, from startups to Fortune 100. I've been open source developer for about a decade, hacker my whole life, grew up building computers and hacking on computers. Come on in, there's room all over. So, and then most recently, I was appointed to the Department of Homeland Security's Data Privacy and Integrity Advisory Committee. Big disclaimer here, everything that I say is my own opinion, not the government's, not Department of Homeland Security, because I always end up tripping over myself and saying something stupid. So, today, if you're on deathstarsecurity.com, this is our fake security consulting company who are producing a few plugins that we're going to take a look at. The first one is Stormtrooper Customer Targeting. The next one is going to be our Droid Scanner Employee Contact Form. And the third one is going to be our Exhaust Port SEO plugin. So, first one is Stormtrooper Customer Targeting. Now, how does this plugin miss the mark? So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm actually logged into the site, and so I'm going to go ahead and enable Stormtrooper targeting here. So if you guys all head to the bottom of the homepage, you'll see the free plugins there. If you click on Stormtrooper targeting, you'll see that. And what this is, all the way down here, this is just a simple form. So I'll be posting all the code for this online. It's horrible, so don't ever use it. But you'll kind of see why things are bad here. So this is a plugin that is made to just collect customer information. We're going to target them, and you know, how bad can that be, right? Well, if we look at what's going on, is like 480. There we go. So, what this form is doing is that when you process it, when you hit submit, it's coming in and it's setting a couple of variables. Can anybody point out what I'm doing wrong here? Does anyone see what I'm doing wrong here?
You're not escaping anything.
I'm not escaping anything. I'm just taking whatever they posted to me and I'm putting it straight into a variable, and I'm going to start processing it right away. So inherent trust in user input is dangerous. Everything that we're doing today is based on the fact that we're not checking that the user is sending us the information that we have expected them to send us. And so this isn't just forms, this is also with Ajax and any APIs that you create. The WP GDPR compliance module had an issue in it. Big long URL here, but if you go there, you'll see that what they were doing is they were taking in inputs similar to this in an Ajax response. They were packaging it all up into a JSON array. They send it off to the Ajax API. Ajax would take it, break it apart, and basically what they're doing is they're setting a bunch of options off of what was in that JSON array. They never checked what was in there. And so what it allowed you to do at the very end, it just said update option from variable to variable. So if I knew what variables you were looking for, I could just set any option I wanted, right? So our plugin has that vulnerability in it. And so what we're going to do here is, if you haven't played with it yet, Postman is a really fun way to kind of test APIs and just send requests. So we're going to send a request to that form, and in the body, rather than an email and the commander that I report to or I most admire, I'm going to send blog name equals remember Alderon. And so if I send this request out, I get back the response that I want to get back. And now if I come here to my website and I refresh the page, you'll notice here at the top, my blog name is now Remember Alderon. Kind of fun, you can go in and play around with things like that. But options are dangerous. If you let somebody arbitrarily just have at your options, they can do a lot of other stuff. Like, what if I say that users can now register? You have a site that you don't want people registering. I'm going to send a request and say, nope, users can register now. Not only can they register, I'm going to go in and set the default role to author. Okay? So I'm going to say all the people that register now are authors. Now, granted, I'm not going to hack my site incredibly horribly wrong, but in the WP GDPR instance, the known exploits for this were setting users can register to true. They were setting the default role to administrator. They were registering an account, and then they were switching it all back, right? So basically, you can open up the site, become an administrator, shut the site back down. So now, if we look at our site, let's see here. Oh, we've got a few people fill out the form. So in addition to doing the exploits and stuff, anybody who filled out that form, you now have an account on the site. Keep that account open. Your password is Death Star if you want to log in, because you're going to be able to do some exploits here in a minute. So first things first, this is a perfect example of don't trust what your users are giving you. Always sanitize your data. Also, just because if you notice the form has a select list on it, but I'm just sending it random arbitrary values. The form doesn't care if it's a select list or if it's a text or whatever. It's just going to take and process the information. So if you have a select list and you know what your options are, check to make sure that the input that you're getting is in the list of items that you're expecting. If not, someone's probably tampering with the form. And I preach on this everywhere I go. Options are incredibly dangerous. Don't store things in options that can be mucked with exploits like this. Sensitive information does not belong in options. So next we're going to look at Droid Scanner. I'll go in and enable our Droid Scanner here. And so in our fake security company, the Droid Scanner is a CAPTCHA, right? We're gonna capture the information and make sure that there's no bots out there that are crawling our forms. And what harm can a few droids really do, right? Well, first off is a DDoS attack. Now, I'm not going to DDoS my own site because I want to leave the server up. I want to leave the site ready for you guys to have some fun on it. But if you go to that form and you fill out the information there and you hit submit, you'll notice it takes a little bit of time to do. I put in a sleep in there for 2 seconds just to show that something is taking a long time here. Now, bots, as they're hitting your forms and hitting your site, hopefully you're not just programming random sleep functions into your forms and into your site, but you're going to have very intensive operations that are going on. If you have a form that is processing intense operations and somebody releases a bot attack against it, that just amplifies, you're basically DDoSing yourself. You're amplifying the request. I've seen this before where an API request came in and that API request called itself, the website itself, and went back out and did an HTTP request to itself 10 or 15 other times. And it was amplifying every request that was coming in. So if you hit that enough, you can just take down the whole site. So the thing that I like to say here is offload anything that's time intensive. If it can't be done right away, put it into a queue and process it later. I've built an airline ticketing website. And this is what we had to do. We're not going to wait for the ticketing reservation system to confirm that the ticket's been there. Most of you guys have booked a reservation online, and you get the ticket in the email 5 to 10 minutes or an hour later. That's what's going on. They're not going to wait for alternate systems and rely on those alternate systems because they need to make sure that things are happening quickly. In addition, make sure you put in some sort of flood control. Make sure that things are tampered down. You can only submit a form a few times, not 100 million times, because these bots are just going to sit there and crawl that form over and over and over again. Additionally, this one has a cross-site scripting error. Now, XSS, you guys always see XSS, cross-site scripting, it's kind of ambiguous to a lot of beginner developers. They don't understand what cross-site scripting is. Cross-site scripting is the ability to inject script into your pages, right? So I can take a payload from my website, put it onto your website, and make the browser of whomever is on that website whoever visits that website, run that script. Now it's just JavaScript. What hard can it do, right? It can do key logging. If it's on a credit card form, it can take all the credit card information and submit it to their server before it submits it to yours. An exploit that was in a WooCommerce form had a cross-site scripting error in it where somebody could inject it and it wouldn't reflect back to the user, it wouldn't be to the broad base, but when an administrator went to view the cart and view all the orders, it could throw a cross-site scripting error at the administrator, and now you are in an administrator screen, you have an authenticated session, and you can have at it, right? With all the APIs that WordPress has, you can go have some fun. So, again, sanitize inputs, sanitize inputs, sanitize inputs. And don't ever trust input from anyone, including your administrators. Just because it's an admin form doesn't mean that you trust who's submitting that admin form. Because as you saw in the first exploit, somebody can submit, change around, become an administrator, and then start having some fun with your site. So, how does cross-site scripting work? We're going to go back to Postman here, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with this one. So in that form, it's going to ask you your name, your email, and who inspires you, what Empire Commander inspires you. So in the name field, I'm going to put in this source or script equals, and you notice that the domain is not the domain that it's originating from. This is a domain separated, it's under the same, it's a subdomain, but it could be anything you want. This is my rebel domain. So I'm going to submit my rebel domain. It's going to take a second or two, and now we're good. And so if I come in here to the site now, down here at the bottom I've got my droid scanner. And so I've injected a script that's going to do the Harlem Shake. And trigger warning if things look weird to you, close your eyes. But I am fully in control of the browser at this point. Okay? I can do whatever I want. Right? So this is a fun example. You know, you can use this as a script that you can find anywhere on the web. You can use this to test cross-site scripting errors against your own site, against other sites. But that script was able to do a whole bunch of funky stuff on the screen. Think of what they can do with real information and trying to get real data out of your browser, out of your users. Again, not a fun situation to be going through, right? So, how do we prevent that? Again, if we look here, we can see that I'm just taking those post variables and I'm just injecting them directly into my code, right? And I'm just saying, store this into the database, and then when I go to build that table, I'm saying, whatever's in the database, take it out of the database and put it in the table. Just trust the whole situation, right? Trust, trust, trust. Instead, if I was just to put in sanitized text field, it would sanitize out anything that would remotely run a script. And by running sanitized text field, I can get rid of any cross-site scripting that's going to be coming in. It's going to escape out special characters. It's going to clean up the fields. So if you are working in forms, which is a lot of the times breaches will come through forms or API posts or something that you're taking in information, sanitize, sanitize, sanitize. WordPress has a plethora of options for sanitized email, so it'll check to make sure it's an actual email that's formatted properly. Sanitized text area, so it'll leave some of the text area return lines intact. There's sanitized keys so that you can just have a random string but not anything else. There's a whole bunch of functions in there that'll let you make sure that the information coming in is the actual information that you want, and no one's going to be doing the Harlem Shake on your website. And so the third one here that we're going to look at is exhaust port SEO. So it's only a form, right? So what harm can a form do? We've seen that a form can be pretty bad. These previous forms have all been subject to this, but along with cross-site scripting, you also have cross-site request forgery. So any of you who clicked on those the initial form and had a user that was created and logged into the site, you now have an authenticated session. Now, if I have a cross-site scripting error, I can come in and I can take out your session cookie and I can start using that. I can send it back to my server and I can now start acting as you. But if I wanted to get even closer with it, I could make you do something from my website without ever going to the original website because you're authenticating. So I'm using the request that I'm going to be making to this form. I'm going to be posting it from my site, but I'm going to be doing action on yours. Now, trying to put this into real terms, say you have a form like Venmo where I'm going to send money from person A to person B, or Bitcoin, or any type of cryptocurrency. You want to send some money to somebody. I can have you click on a button, say, if you are if you're part of the Empire, man, wouldn't you like to find the rebel base? Click here, like win $1 million. Give us your email address and we'll send you money. All you have to do is somehow spearfish somebody into getting to your site that may look like the site that you're originally on or not, and you can make them do whatever you want them to do because they're authenticated in. So I'm going to come down here. I'll turn on our exhaust port. So that exhaust port is, actually, if you look at the code, in the plugin itself, it says only authors can see this form. So if you go to the page and you're not an author, you're not going to see a form. If you go to the page and you're logged in, you're going to see the form. Good on you. You're checking to make sure the user is logged in, you're giving them the form, you're doing things fairly properly. The thing that you're not doing is checking that that form is the form that you gave to them, right? And so, in preparing this site and these demos, all right, we're just gonna hear Harlem Shakes. Everyone has to start dancing when it comes on. So, if I totally lost my train of thought. So, if I can get you to come to my site and click on my button, I can submit as you. You are authenticated. I'm gonna basically hijack your session and go in and do something. So this form is it's for submitting something. I want to check the SEO value of a post that I'm doing, right? That's all fine and good. But if I have you, I have your session, I have you logged in. If you go to rebel.deathstarsecurity.com and you're logged in and you click this, I had to kind of sidetrack this CSRF here because browsers are actually getting smart. So in prepping this demo and in prepping these sites, I actually got blocked by Chrome a lot. Like, oh, I've got the hack going. And then Chrome blocked me, or Firefox blocked me. Browsers are starting to get smart here. Chrome will be like, something's wrong on this page. Maybe you should go somewhere else, right? Like, we can understand patterns now of what cross-site scripting looks like. For cross-site request forgery, a lot of servers now say, hey, if you're trying to post data to me as an authenticated user and you're not from my domain, get out, right? That's like the easiest way to say it is, if you're not from here, you can't post. But if I can trick you into clicking that button, and I come back to my posts here, you can see that I started posting these Remember Alderon posts, and a few other posts people are posting in there. That's awesome. I submitted this Remember Alderon post from the form that was hidden behind that button that I had you click. But because you were logged in, I hijacked your session, submitted a post, and off we go, right? So cross-site scripting is dangerous. It can wreak havoc on admin users and regular users. It can trick regular users. Cross-site request forgery, that's getting into your admin. That's getting into things that are authenticated, and it's hijacking your sessions. So how do you prevent yourself from that? First is cores, and so this is the issue. Like if you try to set up your own cross-site request forgery, as I was, you run into cores a bunch. Cores is that, hey, if you're not from here, you can't post here. You can set certain domains. So if you want to open up, how many people have done headless websites? I've done a few. They're a lot of fun. Headless websites where you have a CMS in the background and everything's being API'd out to some JavaScript front end. That's what all the cool kids are doing these days, right? So you can kind of split the CMS from the JavaScript. Well, that may have a different domain. Well, Cores is going to say, you're not from here. I don't want you to post to my forums, or I don't want you to make a request. So you can say, okay, everybody from that domain is fine, but everyone else can't submit to me. Or you can just give it a wildcard and say, this is an open API, anyone can do whatever they want. Nonces. Nonces are how you block cross-site request forgeries, because it's going to help verify that the form that the person is submitting is the form that you gave them, not something they've made up and sent to you. So nonce is a number that's used once. WordPress has a couple of great functions to create nonces. Basically, what the nonce creation does is you pass it in the action that you are doing, the form you're submitting, the URL you're from, and it's going to create a random string of numbers. That random string of numbers is injected into the form as a hidden element, so when they submit it, you now have on the post the ability to check, does that nonce match the one that I gave out? If it doesn't, that form's been tampered with, or that request has come from somewhere that you can't trust, right? So if you have these nonces, you can see here that I've put in a nonce field. It's super easy on a form. WP nonce field, give it the name of the action that you're doing that you want to check against. And then on the back end, all I'm doing is WP nonce verify. Is this form the form that I gave to the user that they're giving back to me? So, product overview. You guys are all going to go out and buy my plugins, right? Stormtrooper Targeting. Sanitize your inputs. This is number one. This is basic. This is the core to web security is sanitize your inputs. And then, again, handle options with care. If you're going to be setting options in some sort of form submission or in an AJAX call, make sure you're verifying and don't just like randomly set variables and let them let anybody handle it. From Droid Scanner, move your compute heavy functions out of the process of the form submission so that bots can't come in and just flood you with traffic. And again, sanitize everything so that your site doesn't end up doing the Harlem Shake. And then for exhaust port, make sure that you're using Nonces. Check to make sure the forms are coming from where you expect them to come from so that nobody's hijacking your users. Now, I'll full honest admission here, about maybe a year ago, I started making fun of somebody at a meetup because they were using Microsoft Visual Studio Code. I was making fun of them, like, hey, you're a .NET developer, like, what are you doing with that thing? This IDE is awesome, like, it replaces them all, go do it. Like, I will totally eat crow, and like, I am a full-on evangelist of it. But one of the awesome things about it is, if you go to this GitHub link here, it'll teach you, or it'll walk you through the steps to set up the code sniffer. And the code sniffer not only helps you produce code that's to community standards if you're putting out plugins, but it will tell you like, hey, you haven't sanitized this field yet. Hey, you haven't, done a nonce. Like you're doing, like, it will raise those flags for you. And if you noticed in some of the original screenshots there were the red squigglies, that means you're doing something wrong, right? So the reason why I use Death Star security in Star Wars, I'm a nerd, I love the movie, but it's the premise of a strong perimeter doesn't make up for a weak core. You can have secure servers, you can have secure clouds, but if you put weak code on them, your site's going to fail. So with that, I think we've got maybe a couple minutes for questions, and then I'll take the happiness bar later. Yes?
Okay, so a lot of this was over my head, but that's okay. I'm glad I listened.
Totally fine.
So if I just have a site, which I've created, is there a plugin that I can put in that will do some of this stuff for me, that I don't have to like know how to code and all that other stuff, or am I just screwed?
Yeah, no, you're not screwed. So, good friends at WordPress and Sakuri do a great job of protecting your site. They have WAFs that look for, so even if you have some of these vulnerabilities, a WAF, a web application firewall, will look at every request coming in and being like, that's a cross-site scripting request, we're going to block it, right? So some of those services will help you out, and they'll also do code sniffing on your server to make sure that nothing's been injected in there and nothing's gone wrong. We didn't get into SQL injection or remote code execution. Those are a bit deeper, and just use WPDB and don't try to do your own SQL queries. But yeah, so Sakuri and WordFence are two that I highly recommend, and that'll give you kind of the base layer. But it's something where it's talk with your nerds. If somebody's building the site with you or for you, talk with them, make sure that if they're doing a custom plugin, that they're using some sort of code sniffer to look and make sure their code's good.
Any automated way to check the plugins that are not using best practices, especially premium ones that are not in the repo?
Yeah, you can use the code sniffer, so you can load them up in the IDE and it's going to spit them all out for you. There are code sniffing services out there, pen test services, all that. So yeah, you can go through and I don't have any off the top of my head right now, but there are services out there that will scan. Basically, the best way to do it is to have it just scan your server and look for vulnerabilities, and it'll come back and say unsanitized request and all that. But an easy way is load it into the IDE with Visual Studio, and they'll all pop up right there. Yeah. Okay, last one I think, because I got 1 minute left.
Okay, so I'm currently working on a project for a client that is using WooCommerce for product management, and they have a very complex search system. And so one of my teammates has suggested using the REST API. And the biggest concern is security, using the REST API for searching instead of just doing like mostly handling more on the JavaScript side than the PHP side. So what would be like best practices for that to avoid having Harlem Shake happen on the website?
Which, by the way, when the White House originally released their new website, the Trump White House, it had a cross-site scripting area in it that they were able to do the Harlem Shake on it. So you can have the biggest teams, and you're still going to have these little vulnerabilities. It wasn't like a major one, and you had to purposely hack yourself, so it wasn't that bad. But in a situation like that, the REST API isn't inherently insecure. as long as you use it to what it's supposed to do, right? So if you're looking for like advanced search and trying to do that, if you're trying to build your own plugins off that REST API, again, don't trust anything that comes in. You know, trust but verify, right? That's the political term for it. But don't, everything that comes in, verify that it's from who you want it to come from, that the format of it is sanitized, the text strings are sanitized, and then for search, you're probably going to be doing some database queries in that to look. Don't write your own queries. That's just going to lead to SQL injection. So, and again, if you're using code sniffers, WPDB especially, like it will throw a ton of errors at you. I have to actually like squelch some of the errors in my code because it's like, no, I'm doing it right. I know I'm doing it right. But it's going to come out and tell you every step along the way, this isn't verified, this isn't sanitized. You know, the worst thing you could ever do is just concatenate something from the post straight into a SQL query and off you run. That's SQL injection, right? So if you take basic steps like that, you'll protect yourself. But what I'm showing you here isn't to scare you off of building forms and off of using APIs. It's just some basic level. If we sanitize things, if we look at things properly, then we can still be safe. So with that, our time's up and we're on a tight schedule today, but I'll be over at the Happiness Bar. Thank you for coming out.